The Business is sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
Hello and welcome to The Business. I'm Victoria Scott with a show that's essential listening for the West Herts business community. Well, it's tonight's programme. It's Christmas is pretty well and truly over. New Year's just around the corner. And is 2015 going to be the year that you start your own business? With time on your hands over the festive period, maybe you've been using it to try and figure out how you would like to start your own business and how you could go about it. What would the business be and how would you run it? Well, that's the topic that we're going to be exploring tonight. We've got Alex Shoobert, a friend of the business. She's been with us on a number of shows, and she's a business coach and advisor, particularly for start-up businesses. So we're going to be getting Alex's opinion on quite a few things. We're going to hear from a recent start-up, Heartwood Candles, how their business has been faring in 2014 and what they're looking forward to in 2015. And we're also going to take a slightly sideways view at entrepreneurship with John Turner of MetaThink, a freelance philosopher and business expert as well. As ever, we want to hear your views, and so please get in touch with us. The studio number is 01727 839 926. Tweet on at RVTheBusiness or email us, thebusiness@radioverulam.com. As usual, I'm joined in the studio with my fellow presenter, Clare McAnulty. So how are you, Clare, and what have you spotted in the news this week?
Yeah, well, my story this week concerns people who did have to work on Christmas Day. And of course, when we hear those stories, we do feel sorry for them, but apparently we shouldn't. And I've picked two who have very positive feelings about working on Christmas Day. Firstly, there's plumber and general repairman John Bailey. He looks forward to working Christmas Day. In fact, he's worked the last 15 Christmas days. Mr Bailey works via the tradesman website handy.com and charges £100 for the first hour of his call out. So that could be a bit of a clue there, Vicky, as to why he enjoys working Christmas Day. In addition to the money, he says he likes rescuing people's Christmas days. Working on Christmas Day is great for your ego. We shouldn't have one, I know, but it's great when you fix something and there's big smiles all round, he says. It makes you very happy and it puts you into the festive spirit.
It's quite an interesting one, that, isn't it? Because I know a number of people whose boilers have broken on Christmas Day and they're all sort of like they're ready to get dressed in their party frocks and can't shower. So
somebody like John would be the hero of the hour if he appeared. And the other person who enjoys working Christmas Day is Mary Tucker. Mary Tucker runs the firm London Walks with her husband David. Their Christmas Day involves 5 2-hour walks. The Charles Dickens Christmas Walk starts from Trafalgar Square and aims to follow in the festive footsteps of the famous Victorian author. Between 30 and 40 people are expected to join each time, paying £9 a head. Mrs Tucker says the tour has a special resonance on Christmas Day, due of course to Dickens' favourite novel, A Christmas Carol. Dickens almost invented Christmas as we know it today, says Mrs Tucker. It's fun and people are appreciative, is very appropriate too because of Dickens' connection to Christmas and also because he was a great walker as well. And she says that London Walks decided to start organising walks on Christmas Day several years ago. They found they were more popular than anticipated. Mrs Tucker says, for my family, it's not difficult because my husband's one of the guides too. She adds, when we have Christmas at my mum's in the evening, we feel we've really earned it. And I have to say, a walk on Christmas Day, it does tend to be something that most of us do, even if just to walk out off the Christmas dinner. What about you, Vicky? Are you a walker?
Well, we tend to do our big walk on Boxing Day, actually. We sort of do the big walk on blow away the cobwebs on Boxing Day morning. But I think this sounds like a great idea. And I think a name like Mrs Tucker, she sort of sounds as though she might be out of one of the Dickens novels, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea. And it's also, when there are so many tourists in London and it's it's all very nice being in a hotel for Christmas, but actually getting out and about on Christmas Day in London when there is no traffic and everybody else is buttoned down, I think it'd be great.
Perfect, actually, if you think about it. Yeah, good time to do a walk.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea, and what a nice way to sort of open the show with some really festive stories. My festive story isn't so much about the festivities of Christmas, but actually the shops and the link between the shops and online shopping and social media. So it's like more of a business story, but in this sort of massive, great big retail world, and also with the show being about new businesses. I thought it was really interesting, a survey that came out recently by YouGov. And they found that retailers are failing to engage online shoppers via social media, which was a real surprise to me. We've talked to a lot of social media people on the site, on the show. We know that the combination of sort of hard bricks and offline and online works really, really well for retail. But what this research was saying was that half of online shoppers are less trusting of retailers with a presence on social media. So nearly 2/3 of online consumers are using reviews on retailers' online stores to research product purchases. And nearly half use price comparison sites. 40% read consumer reviews on third-party sites like Which and things like that. But according to James McCoy, the research director of YouGov, despite all the efforts that retailers are putting into increasing sales by harnessing the popularity of social media platforms such as Facebook, consumers prefer to keep shopping and social networks working separate. Oh. So it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I would have thought the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are thinking of launching your business in the new year, and you're doing a bit of online and a bit of offline, and you're thinking about Facebook, you might want to think twice about how you go about and how you use it. Now, we're just about to go into a quick break. Please join us if you've got anything that you'd like to talk about. If we can take calls on 01727 839 926. You can tweet us at RVTheBusiness, email us at thebusiness at radioverulam.com, or even YouTube. youtube.com/RVTheBusiness. Please join us after the break. You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam 92.6 FM.
The Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
Radio Verulam Community Partners.
Trestle Art Space is a community art space and registered charity situated in Russet Drive in Highfield Park. Home to Trestle Theatre Company and world-renowned Trestle Masks. We offer a wide range of arts-based activities as well as professional theatre shows, monthly live music showcases with licensed bar and a gallery cafe with exhibitions from local artists. Our 100-year-old converted chapel is also available to hire for weddings, private parties and business meetings. To find out more, please visit our website at trestle.org.uk. And please support us in bringing affordable arts to our community.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
And welcome back. You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. I'm here, Victoria Scott, with Clare McAnulty, and we're discussing starting a business. Are you going to be starting a business in 2015? We're joined now by Alex Shoobert. Alex is a business coach and advisor for startup businesses. Good evening, Alex.
Good evening.
Hi there. Alex, can you just, first of all, I know a lot of our listeners already know you because you have been with us before on the show, but can you just start by telling everybody what your job involves and how you help startup businesses?
Yeah, sure. So, I've been working with small businesses, particularly startups, for a long while now. And it's quite a generalist role. So I'll speak to people right from kind of very early stages where they might be just thinking through a few different ideas actually deciding what to do, right through until the sort of around a year of trading. So thinking about everything around marketing, finance, and the sort of the business model.
Is it true to say that there are more people starting their own businesses this year, in this last year, in the last couple of years, since the sort of recession hit, people were made redundant, etc.? Is it true that there are more new businesses starting than ever before?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is true. There are certainly a lot of people starting up, but the circumstances are very different. So you've got some people, starting up who've perhaps been planning to do that for a long while, and are looking to sort of start a business that is going to build, and they're perhaps going to employ a lot of people. You've got other people who are going freelance and doing things that are sort of self-employed. So it's a real mixture in there, I think.
Yeah, and it's a lot lower point of entry these days, isn't it? I mean, you really can start an international business with very little money on the web, for example, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It does. It's certainly quite easy to get started. Of course, the starting up bit is kind of the easy bit. It's the carrying on and actually making the business successful that's a little bit more difficult.
And do you think people are just jumping in feet first without doing the planning and the research and the, really understanding what they're letting themselves in for?
Well, I mean, I think most people that I see are thinking about it properly, but I suppose those are the people that are, of course, going to seek help and to talk it through with somebody. I'm sure some people do jump in a little bit too quickly. I mean, there's always an element of luck in these things. So there are always people who do sort of stumble into running their own business or jump into it, and actually it's really successful. But I think I would always advise people to take a little bit more time in planning and thinking it through before they jump into it.
And what are, if you were to name sort of 4 things that people ought to be considering before they start a business, what would the key things be?
I think the key things are really around understanding your market. So it quite often begins with an idea. So you might spot a gap in the market or have a really good idea. It's quite tempting to just get carried away with that idea at that early stage. So what I'd say is that you really need to research that in a bit more detail, really find out what's happening in the market. Who are your competitors and what are they doing? What's happening in the industry and what sort of changes are coming up that might possibly present opportunities for you or kind of create challenges. And also to understand in as much detail as you can about your customers. So really in as much depth as you can find out, what is it that they're buying, why are they buying, and what their needs really are.
I mean, that sort of understanding exactly who it is you're going to be selling to and what it is that they're going to be wanting it's obviously completely crucial. But if you are in a position where you need to, for example, get some stock, let's say, before you can even kick off, are there schemes available to help with the financing of new businesses? Are there grants to help you set up? There used to be quite a lot of support and help with things like Business Link. Yeah. I know that was dissolved a couple of years ago, but are there is there easy access to people like yourself?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of help out there. So there's a lot of there's certainly a lot of advice out there, and there are a lot of organisations who offer that kind of thing. There are some grants and funding around. There's not a huge amount. Some of them are specific to what particular industry that you're in. It's always worth looking, of course. I mean, one of probably the first places to look is if you look on the gov.uk website. Mm-hmm. There's a search function on there, so you can look in your area and you can look at particularly the industry you're in and see what grants and things might be available to you.
Okay, and that's actually on the government site, so that's really quite useful. Mm. And you said there were particular types of industries. Could you name a couple?
I mean, I know there's something, for example, around the childcare industry. There's particular grants around that. Also, things like if you're starting a green business in some way, if you're going into sort of green technology. So there are bits and pieces like that around. It's always worth looking.
If the government's got a bit of a penchant for something, then they'll have some grants out there to try and encourage people to move in. So, what about timing? Is New Year a good time to start a business?
Well, I mean, it depends really what you're doing. I think a lot of people do. New Year's one of those times, isn't it, where you want to kind of make a fresh start. So a lot of people do start in the new year. I mean, the timing might depend on what it is you're doing. So, for example, if you are selling a product that's popular at Christmas, for example, you need to make sure you give yourself enough time to actually get it up and running. So you're not trying to get started a couple of months before Christmas, as you'll probably find you haven't got enough time to get things out there. So, I mean, it's a perfectly good time, but I think you need to just think a little bit about that, depending on what it is you're selling and whether it's something seasonal.
Absolutely. And I also guess that nowadays, if you are going to be starting a business, you don't actually have to give up one job to start another. There are possibilities of actually running in tandem for a while until you're in a position to really feel comfortable that you can sort of live off the proceeds and that the proceeds are going to be big enough. And so actually, New Year might be a good time to start thinking and planning. But as you say, not absolutely necessarily just drop everything and crash in. I mean, not more planning. What are the big sort of faux pas that people make in the early stages? What do you come across and you think, oh, if only you'd come to me a little bit earlier?
Well, I think that it really comes down to research and planning. Actually, it's I suppose one of the things is that people, as I said, sort of run away with an idea. They're so excited about the product or service they've come up with that they're convinced that everyone will want it without actually any evidence. So I think it's spending a bit of time in researching and also being kind of open-minded about what you find out. So sometimes when you actually start the research, you find that people are telling you something different. They're telling you that actually that's not quite what they're interested in, but actually there's something else. There's something something slightly similar, or there's a particular feature of what you're offering that's particularly important to them. And of course, you can then adapt what it is that you're offering at that point. So I think that sort of research is important. I mean, the other mistakes that people make are probably around the financing. So they don't account for the kind of money that they're going to need to start up, and they sort of underestimate what it's going to cost them, or they overestimate how quickly they're going to make money from it.
So, Alex, what we thought we would do this evening is explore the topic of starting a business by following alongside one local business that started in May of 2013. And we met Laura Dannan of Heartwood Candles when we covered the St Albans Christmas market last year. She and her business partner Dominique combined selling their products at local markets with their e-commerce site. I started by asking Laura what had given them the idea for their business.
As an aromatherapist, I was very frustrated that there weren't any natural candles. And by natural, I mean natural wax to a certain extent, but specifically natural fragrance. So many are synthetic fragrances. And I wanted to create like an aromatherapy candle with, a truer, more real scent that also would have an aromatherapy effect as well as smelling great. So there were a couple out there, but they were quite expensive. So that's why we began. We made some candles. Our friends loved them, and it kind of went from there. We make the candles at each other's homes. Generally at my house, we do it in the kitchen. We make them in small batches. We are really passionate about, we are the only ones to make our candles. And I think we've got plans to grow next year, but that is something that it's only us that want to make our candles. We call them our babies, and we're very protective over them. And I love the way that my house smells at the end when we be making them. So yes, in our kitchen. So yes, very homemade.
And do you think then you spotted a gap in the market?
Yes, I think people are more concerned about their health now, what they breathe in, and just about health benefits in general. Yes, I think we did spot a gap. Well, I'm hoping we have anyway, yes.
And tell me a little bit about the market. Did you find that was, when you did the market last year, did you find it was a good place to do research? Did you pick up things from being at the market that you wouldn't have if you were just, say, selling off an e-commerce website?
Yes, we do have a website, but the market, the Christmas market in particular, and when we do a couple of other events, for example, like the Hertfordshire County Show, they are so important to us. We get to talk to our customers. We always ask people what their favourite scent is and also what their least favourite is, which is really quite interesting. Just talking to people, getting feedback and connecting with your customer base and potential customer base. So, yeah, it's crucial for us, we feel, to do events, and especially something like the Christmas market in St Albans, being our hometown as well.
So I'm interested in how business has gone then in the last year. So you've got an e-commerce site. Now, how difficult or easy was that to set up, and did you learn any lessons from setting up your e-commerce website? Well,
we did it ourselves through Shopify, which made it very simple, and that was obviously a big change for us, that the people could order online. In terms of did we learn lessons, we've kept it very simple. So I think that was, we didn't want anything too complicated. I think maybe we should have launched a website sooner, but then we did have it in time for Christmas last year, which was very important. And I think we've been really lucky this year because the support from people locally in St Albans, but also, nationally, has been really, really, really great. And, we feel very grateful for that.
And I'm just thinking that if you're doing the market, it's maybe a good combination to have, being at the market, but also being able to give people your website, so that when the candle that they bought, say at the market, runs out, or if they like it and they want to maybe suggest it to friends, you've got the website that they can move on to and buy from. So do you think maybe the two things work quite well?
Absolutely. Number one, obviously you can't smell candles online. People are very happy people do purchase without smelling, but the market's great because we always invite, come and have a sniff is generally what we say. Smell the candles. They may not buy there and then, but then they've smelt them and they may come back. Our Christmas candles actually sold out very quickly this year, far quicker than we imagined. So we then made another batch, and we sold all of those through our website after the market.
Wow, it sounds as though they're really, really doing well, doesn't it, Alex? And it sounds as though they also had just a very, very simple idea and a lot of passion. And to be honest, we hear quite a lot about successful businesses being sort of based on passion, but also really quite low startup costs and doing everything from the kitchen. All of these things sort of sound like a great way of starting a business, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, isn't it? That's exactly it. In terms of having the passion, you've got to really enjoy what you do to kind of keep you motivated, because you will, if you start off without that enthusiasm, it's going to be really difficult when you hit some difficult patches, and things don't kind of go your way. So I think that's really key. You've got to really actually enjoy what you're doing.
And like when she called them her babies, didn't she? But what happens in a business like that, where they're clearly making the stuff themselves? I mean, you could find yourself working 24/7 because you run out of Christmas candles and you've still got 2 weeks to go before Christmas. When is the time in a business like this to actually start saying, well, they are our babies, but actually maybe we could have some nannies to come and help make a few more babies for us? What's the point at which they need to start thinking about that sort of thing?
Well, I thought it was interesting that she said it sounded to me like they'd sort of consciously made a decision about what size they wanted to get to. Yes. So they said, they did want to grow a bit, but they wanted to keep it just the two of them. And they wanted to keep it kind of a homemade thing. And I think it's quite important to kind of think about that when you're starting. You know, where do you want it to go? Do you want this to become a sort of multinational, you know, employing kind of thousands of people, or do you want to keep it as a small local business? And because there's a real benefit in it being that sort of, because of the kind of business it is, you know, it being a sort of, the owners being quite involved and it being a sort of homemade product is a really nice thing, isn't it?
Yes, it's like turning your hobby into a business, isn't it?
And that's absolutely fine. So, I mean, I think it was just interesting. There's no reason that you have to kind of grow it in any particular way. But you're right. If it does start growing, you get this sort of chicken and egg situation where you have a bit too much work to do, you know, or and things get. But you perhaps aren't at the stage where you can afford to start employing people, or you know, getting a sort of some kind of manufacturing setup or that sort of thing. So it is tricky. You do get to a stage where you have this sort of crossover where you have to decide whether you're going to take a leap. I suppose the only tips really around that are to try and plan ahead and try and work out financially, and you know, in terms of your other resources, as you know, your time, for example, as you were saying, you've got to work out, well, at what point am I going to need to get help, because I don't want to be, you know, working 24 hours a day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, it sounds as though they got it sort of quite well sewn up until the time that somebody comes along and says, you know, actually, Harvey Nichols wants 2,000 of your Christmas candles next year. And then that's when you've got some really difficult decisions to make. I loved the idea that that they were using the market not just to sell more product, but also as a real bit of market research to find out what people like, what they don't like. You know, that's something that people don't always ask what customers don't like, and yet it's an incredibly valuable lesson, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that because, you know, I was saying about market research earlier on, and of course it's not just something you do at the beginning and then you sort of put in a drawer. You need to kind of really keep up to date with what's happening and, you know, what your customers are asking for and what sort of trends are coming up. So that being able to be face-to-face and being able to ask really good questions gives you some really, really useful information to work with.
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam, 92.6 FM. We're discussing starting a business. We've got Alex Shoobert with us, who's a business expert. And we've been listening to a lovely business, which is making candles at the kitchen table. If you want to add to the discussion, please tweet us on @RVTheBusiness, and we'll be with you after this short break.
The Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
At Kingston Smith, our ethos is simple. We want our clients to succeed. Welcoming owner-managed businesses and individuals, we pride ourselves on offering the local business community a range of services that best supports their needs for maximum growth. Kingston Smith, helping our clients succeed. Find us on St Peter Street in the heart of St Albans, or for more information, head to kingstonsmith.co.uk.
Radio Verulam Community Partners.
The Abbey Line connects St Albans Abbey train station at the bottom of Holywell Hill with Watford Junction, and was one of the UK's first official community railways. Some of the main objectives of the community rail concept are to help create a more sustainable future, to reduce the cost of running the line without compromising safety or service, and to involve local people more closely in the development of their railways. For 150 years, the Abbey Line has been taking people between St Albans and the centre of Watford and beyond. It continues to do this, and all for at most £4 return in only 16 minutes. For more information, visit their website, which is abbeyline.org.uk.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
Are you a local musical artist based in the West Herts area looking for exposure to our Radio Verulam audience? If so, Join us on Wednesdays from 5:30 for the Drive Time Sessions, an opportunity for local artists to perform 2 original songs and a cover. Plus, there will be time for a chat with me, Danny Smith, which will allow you to share with our audience something about yourselves and details of any forthcoming local gigs. If you would like to feature on the Drive Time Sessions, then email danny@radioverulam.com. That's the Drive Time Sessions, Wednesdays from 5:30pm, part of West Herts Drive Time with Danny Smith, exclusively on 92.6 FM, Radio Verulam.
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
And welcome back to The Business. I'm Victoria Scott, and I'm here with Clare McAnulty and our guest Alex Shoobert, a business coach and advisor for start-up businesses. We're all talking this morning, this evening, about starting a business and all the things that are required when you're starting a business. And one of the businesses that's been running very successfully over the last year is Heartwood Candles. And we've been hearing from Laura Dannan of Heartwood Candles. And she got heavily involved in social media right from the start of running her business. And Claire asked Laura about how she was using social media.
Friends and family do joke I am a little bit of a social media addict. It has to be said. It has been so important for us. We didn't have a strategy exactly, other than to spread our name and our brand through it. And yes, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and also on Instagram. I think the thing is with business and social media, personally, and this is talking as a consumer and as a personal user, I don't really like it when brands or businesses just sell or just, on Twitter, for example, if they're just kind of posting links to their website and they're not getting involved in conversations with other people. That kind of is a slight bugbear for me. So on Twitter, I generally do the social media side of things, and Dominique's more the way it looks, the artistic and creative and the packaging side. But with the social media, I wanted to form relationships with people and have conversations. And with our Facebook, it's about having a balance of content that does inform them about your product, but also about the kind of feel and things around your product. I probably post too many sunsets and sunrises on our page, but, I kind of can't get enough of those.
I suppose as well what I'm maybe getting at is that the marketing is free on social media. So whereas possibly a number of years ago you would have had to market maybe with flyers and business cards, the point is that in terms of starting up a business like yours, it's free to be on social media. Okay, your time's not free, but the networks are. So it's a good way of marketing that doesn't cost you very much.
Absolutely. I mean, we've done flyers and goodie bags before. We have also done one paid advert, and I have to say we basically got nothing from that. So for our business, that didn't work. There are plenty others that it does work for, but for us it didn't. I think people get so many flyers, they end up in the bin. And I think people like to get to know the ethos and the people behind the brand. And I think social media, like you say, it's free. You can do that easily. Particularly, I think Instagram is becoming more popular. Often when I see something I like, or when we've just made a batch of candles, I'll often take a photo and just stick it on that. And that's been a great way of connecting with people in our kind of industry and getting the word out, as well as with new customers as well.
Some really interesting points once again there from Laura Dannan of Heartwood Candles. Alex, she clearly has been using social media from the start, and she's doing it exactly right, isn't it? How often do we talk about people who are actually out there just trying to sell, and actually what you need to do is to build relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as with kind of everything to do with your marketing, you've got to really have a strategy when you're thinking about how you want to use social media. I suppose that the flip side of it being free is that that there's some people don't think about it. They just think, I'll just set up some accounts and I'll just write some stuff and send it out kind of thing. And actually it needs to be part of your strategy, and you've got to think about what it is you're trying to do. I mean, she mentioned there it was more about sort of networking and building relationships and about sort of building awareness of the brand. So, you can do that in less direct ways than just giving information about your product or sort of promotions that you've got.
Absolutely. I mean, I always talk about generosity marketing, where actually what you're doing is sharing some of the knowledge that you've got rather than trying to flog your product. So earlier in the clips we were hearing about her absolute understanding of the aromatherapy oils and the combinations of those, and that sort of awareness of what your knowledge that you're putting into your product, sharing that with people, it helps them really feel that you know what you're talking about, so therefore they're more likely to buy your product without you really sort of driving it. But how many companies do you know really do have a strategy when it comes to social media, or do they just start blogging and tweeting without really thinking enough about it?
Well, I think it's a real mixture. I mean, some people naturally, like Laura, obviously just love it and have kind of grown up with social media and kind of really get it and enjoy it. Other people groan and say, I suppose I ought to find out about this Twitter thing, So it's quite difficult if you're not used to it and you haven't really got it yet. But I mean, you don't have, there's no reason every business has to have has to use every single form of social media. But I think really, just at a basic level, any business needs to at least know about it, at least needs to sort of have a look at it, work out what it can do, and think about, is there a way that I can actually use this for my business? Especially when you've got something visual, like the candles or something like that. It's great to use something like Instagram. That's a really easy way to kind of get your awareness of your product out there.
And Alex, I wonder if you think that marketing is slightly different. I mean, even in the last sort of, say, 5 to 10 years, that it is, for example, Laura mentioned, didn't she, that conventional media didn't work for them very well. They took out the advert and it didn't work. So do you think marketing has changed quite a bit?
Yeah, I think it's changed in quite a few ways, really. I think, there's almost more sort of personality coming, especially with the smaller business. There's more of a kind of acceptable crossover almost between the person who's running the business and the product.
I think those sorts of things really matter in these small businesses, that personality, that ownership, those babies that they're making in their kitchen, and the passion that they've got for those specific scents that they're putting together. But I also think, there are principles of marketing that it doesn't matter whether you're talking about social media or you're talking about advertising. You need to have a strategy. One advertisement is not likely to work any more than one tweet is likely to work. And sometimes it has to be combinations. But what really has to happen is you have to have strategy and you have to have sustainability and longevity. So, if you can't afford an advertising campaign that lasts for sort of 3 months, then don't bother with a one-off ad because it's really unlikely to pull the business in. And people sort of say to me, like she mentioned, well, flyers don't tend to work, people put them in the bin. Well, actually, if you get a flyer right and you get it into the right hands, they can work phenomenally well because most of the biggest businesses in the world make them work incredibly well, and they don't put good money after bad. But it is about knowing what it is that you're trying to achieve, knowing your audience, knowing which letterboxes to put that flyer through. I think it's also quite interesting. I mean, the next generation have stopped using Facebook now. So, when you sort of think about, not having quite got your act together on Facebook yet, you might have already missed that boat. So, anyway, we went on to ask Laura, what 2015 holds for Heartwood Candles.
The exciting news that we have is that we've joined forces with a local designer who's another local St Albans mum called Chloe Dunn, who's an amazing graphic designer, and we're working on an eco-friendly box. We love our packaging, and that will continue to be on our website in the paper, but we actually want to branch into retail next year in 2015. And I think the challenge with the wrapping that we had at the minute is that retailers said it wasn't hardy enough. So we're in the process of getting a box designed with Chloe, and then we are looking to get into some shops and gain some retail presence. So we're very excited about that, and that's kind of the main plan for 2015, as well as also developing a few new scents as well.
So that idea that she might be getting an order from Harvey Nichols in the not too distant future might not have been quite so left field, and she's already bringing other people on board. So actually using some local design talent, that's really nice, and that sounds like a great thing to be doing, as well as getting some real learning going. You know, finding out that from retailers who know that their packaging isn't going to stand up to it. It's, you know, it sounds as though possibly a little bit more by accident than design, but they're really getting it right all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea that they're looking at this sort of eco-friendly packaging as well, because I think that links really nicely with the sort of the brands that they've got. And again, it's sort of, they're keeping an eye out and they're realising the sorts of trends and things that are around and that are becoming more and more important.
Yes, I think you're right. I think the sorts of people that are interested in aromatherapy oils and natural waxes are almost certainly going to be concerned about the environment. It all goes hand in hand, and as you say, it's sort of more about understanding and really knowing your audience and your customers. So, Laura and Dominique of Heartwood Candles have been having a fantastic year. They're really, really cranking it up for 2015, which is all terribly exciting. And they've been very entrepreneurial and thoughtful in the way that they've built their business. But what about entrepreneurship in general? Is it on the increase? Well, John Turner is a fascinating chap that I happen to know rather well. We have philosophical discussions over chocolate in lots of cafes around West Herts. He made his sort of name really in the .com boom and jumped ship before the bubble burst, and then went on to get involved in philosophy. When I first met him, he actually introduced himself as being a freelance philosopher, which I just thought was so much more interesting than a lot of the accountants and lawyers and people that I was otherwise going to be sitting having lunch with. Anyway, he's a lead practitioner at MetaThink. They do a lot of training in terms of developing thinking in business, and his organisation delivers workshops and training in that whole big picture thinking for businesses, education and the arts. I have to say, I have to apologise in advance for this next clip because there was a very noisy cappuccino machine in the background. It was fluffing up the milk in his hot chocolate beautifully, but it did cause a bit of a problem. Anyway, here's John. One of the things that seems to be flying around the press a lot at the moment is that we're becoming more entrepreneurial because we've got to, because we've had to. And there seems to be no doubt at all that it's the small businesses, the sole traders, the SMEs that are dragging Britain at least sort of out of the recession. Do you think that, or is there any evidence to suggest that we have become more entrepreneurial?
I don't know about hard numbers, but I think definitely in terms of anecdotal evidence, yeah, it's quite common. It's in the news, and it's very probably true. I think, you know, if you think of it from a logical perspective, necessity is a great motivator, and we have been through and are still in a period of great necessity.
You said earlier you believed wholeheartedly in luck and the importance of it in business, and that we can actually help ourselves be more lucky. You haven't got a hot tip on how to be more lucky?
Yeah, I have actually. It's tempting to think that we have no control over luck, but I think we do. We can exert a certain amount of control. If you believe in luck, luck believes in you. And again, there's a bunch of research done by, I believe it was Professor Richard Wiseman, who did a lot of research into luck, which demonstrated really quite convincingly that the people who believe that they're lucky are genuinely more lucky. They're objectively and measurably more lucky than people who believe that they are unlucky. So one way of looking at luck is that it's primarily a question of being in the right place at the right time, with the right mindset. So the right mindset is to believe that you're lucky. The best way of being in the right place at the right time is just to be in more places more of the time. You've got to put your shoes on and get out of the house.
Well, I think that's a great place to stop. Get your shoes on, get out of the house, and be lucky. Thank you ever so much, John Turner of MetaThink. Oh, I do love that. Luck, being in the right place at the right time, getting luckier by being in more places. Is that good advice, Alex?
That's brilliant advice, yeah. He mentioned Richard Wiseman, who's fantastic. It's a very interesting book. I think it's called The Luck Factor. And, yeah, absolutely. I think you can really notice it's sort of people who see themselves as lucky and are then going to kind of always be looking out for opportunities. I think it's just about that, really. It's going out with your eyes open, looking for opportunities and expecting to meet useful contacts and come up with ideas. And I think that's definitely where you can influence how lucky you are.
I think it's also true to say that if you sort of go into these things with your eyes open and your arms sort of like wide open, looking for positivity in all situations, then you're more likely to find those opportunities, aren't you? I think without a shadow of a doubt, when we talk about entrepreneurs, there are masses of books out there. Most of the entrepreneurs that write the books, you realise that they've had huge successes and they've had huge failures.
Yeah.
They've been absolutely destitute on more than one occasion, and almost the entrepreneurial spirit is how quickly and readily and they fight themselves back up to the top, really, rather than how high up the ladder they get. What is it about these people that gives them that fight as well as the luck?
I think you're right. That's a really key factor. It's that sort of resilience, isn't it, of being able to kind of pick yourself back up. And as I was saying earlier, it's about the sort of passion. If you've got a real passion for what you do and you really enjoy it and you're really interested in it, that kind of carries you through. Then that when you do inevitably hit those difficult patches or something does go wrong, you're much more likely to be able to kind of pick yourself back up again. And it's not about the fact that things go wrong. Things will go wrong. That's just life. But it's how you then react to that, how you then decide what to do with the events that happen to you, and how you sort of pick yourself back up again afterwards.
Absolutely. It is interesting, isn't it, that actually, however much planning you do, that things aren't always going to go exactly as planned. And actually, I was talking to one of our producers, Ellie, earlier in the year, and she runs the fashion shows in Fashion Week in St Albans. And I said to her, what did you learn from last year that will really help you this year? And, the answer that she gave me then was that things will go wrong. And I can't expect it all to run smoothly. And just knowing that things will go wrong means that you handle it more easily when they do. And that was just great advice from her, but very, very positive advice. Now, we've got one final clip from Heartwood Candles. So as they end their busy year, Clare asked Laura Dannan just how she and Dominique had found starting their first business.
I will say one thing, it's been a lot more work than we thought. Kind of think, let's make some candles, let's sell them. But the amount, it took us months to develop our blends, for example, and we're fortunate in that there are two of us, and we have very different skill sets, so I think that's a positive. I think my advice is, as long as you are passionate about your product or about your service, that is the key thing. You can make it happen if you are passionate and if that's something that you really want to do. So my advice would be, if someone has an idea and you feel that there's a gap in the market and you passionately believe in it, go for it. Because I think as long as you are determined and you have your goal and you keep it in mind, you'll get there. And I guess how we feel about our candles.
And just to finish off, if you can just tell us where people can find you, either in the next market you're doing or possibly online, Laura.
We're online. Our website address is Heartwood, so Heart, heartwoodcandlecompany.co.uk, or you could just Google Heartwood Candles. And the next event, the next market we will be doing will be in May, and that will be at the Hertfordshire County Show.
So it sounds as though they're going to have a well-earned rest after this this Christmas period. doesn't surprise me at all that she said that it's been a lot more work than she thought it was going to be. What do you think about that, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody said that to me. Yeah, it is more work probably than you anticipate at the beginning.
I know when I first came out of corporate life and started my own business. One of the things that I found I was doing straight off, or pretty well straight off, was working 24/7. You know, I just didn't realise that you have to put barriers on your own time as well, and if you don't, you just burn out quite quickly. But there is that temptation, because you can, that you just sort of work all the hours that God sends. Now I know that you need to quite often. But there is a point at which you've really got to knock it back and knock it into some sort of shape, to remind yourself that actually work-life balance was also important in this whole setting your own business up. So how do companies manage that work-life balance when you're in your own business?
Well, it is difficult, isn't it? Because you usually, when you're working for somebody, you've got a sort of structure imposed. You know, you've got to be there particular hours, and then you can go away again. So when you don't have that structure, you don't have anybody telling you what to do. You have to sort of you have to be your own manager, really, and you have to sort of make some decisions about the structure of your day and your week. And of course, you don't have to do a 9 to 5, you know, depending on what you're doing. And in actual fact, those timings may not work for you. You might want to work around other things, or you might just not be at your best at 9 in the morning or whatever, and want to change that. But I think it's very useful early on to kind of be quite honest with yourself about what your motivation levels are like, where your sort of danger areas are, where you might kind of get demotivated, or where you might be tempted to overwork and kind of get overtired. And actually plan some structure so that you can kind of manage your time a bit better.
Another thing that I noticed with Laura and Dominique, her partner, was that they actually did an awful lot of it themselves, didn't they? They managed to do their website, they managed to do their packaging. I mean, that's quite a lot of different skills there. Now, are they just lucky that they have those skills, or do you think that most people do have to be able to cover most of those things if they start a business?
Well, I mean, to some extent, you have to be able to do a bit of everything, and there are going to be areas that you've probably never done before. You know, most people haven't had a job, you know, say if they come from an employed job where they've had to do a bit of everything, you know, a bit of marketing and a bit of finance and all sorts of things. So, you know, it's to be expected that you're not going to have that whole skill set. So, I mean, your choices are that you either look to kind of train yourself and kind of upskill so that you can do everything, or that you find things that you can kind of, farm out to other people. So there's a lot of things that you can outsource. So if you just absolutely know that could be marketing, could be finance, you know, is not your thing and not something you want to do, although you of course need to be involved and you need to be involved with the strategy. Certainly you need to know what's going on. There are aspects of that you can give to other people to do. So those are the kind of decisions that you need to make, really.
Yeah, I think as well that though when you start your own business, you perhaps don't know that you don't have those skills. I think that's part of the burnout at the beginning, where you do try to do all these things, and particularly when you have been a corporate structure where there is an infrastructure there that probably you're not even aware of.
There's
you become aware of it once you're out on your own, don't you?
Yeah. You can always get that kind of help. So yeah, there will be lots of bits and pieces that, as you kind of go through that process, you realise, oh, I need to know about that now. I need to find out about that, and it is a process that you need to go through. But there's loads of information out there. I mean, that's the great thing, especially with the internet. You know, there's so much you can find out that you can, you can kind of go through and find out everything that you need to find out.
It's also, I think, where these fantastic networking groups come into their own. People think that networking is just about going and trying to get business, but actually what networking is about is so much more than that, because in all of those groups there will be people who can help you with IT or websites or SEO or Twitter or marketing, all sorts of different help out there that doesn't always cost that much, and quite often, you know, there's a bit of bartering that goes on. You know, I'll help you with this, you help me with that. You know, candles as gifts for the you know, not for the plumber, but you know, for the graphic designer who's helping them with the packaging. There's a lot of that sort of moral support that comes through those networking groups, which is also really, really nice. So we're coming towards the end of the show. Have you got any final thoughts, Alex, that you'd just like to throw into the mix to anyone that's thinking of biting the bullet and going out on their own next year?
I suppose it's just to say that, you know, as well as the kind of planning about the sort of the tasks that you need to do, also to kind of really think about yourself in terms of your skills and your expertise, and sort of anticipate where you might have difficulties with, you know, keeping yourself motivated and keeping yourself organised, and think about who you can get to help you with that. And it might be, like you said, with the networking, it might be that you can meet somebody who's in a similar position. It might be just that you want to arrange to kind of have regular coffees with them and make sure that you kind of keep each other on track and that sort of thing.
Like a buddying system.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a really, really nice idea. Well, thank you ever so much, Alex. I think what I've learnt and what I'm going to plan to for 2015 is that I'm just going to be an awful lot luckier. That's my big plan for 2015. What about you, Claire? What have you learnt from the show?
Well, I thought one of the best ideas, and in fact, I suppose it only works if you've got a product, but the idea of going to the market first and combining that with a website so that you get the combination of picking up lots of ideas, meeting members of the public. The other thing that Laura did mention, we didn't actually use it in the interview, she did St Albans Christmas Market this year as well, and she said that in the year between this and the last market, because she's been doing so much social media, that people were actually coming up to her in the market and saying, I've seen you on Twitter, I've seen you on Facebook. So, I mean, her social media strategy has worked really well. So the combination of that, the market and the website, I thought was really
interesting and very much at odds with the YouGov information that's been coming through. So quite what that was all about. But I guess it's horses for courses. You know, it works for some businesses, it doesn't work for other businesses. So thank you enormously for joining us, Alex, and your pearls of wisdom. We've been hearing from Laura Dannan of Heartwood Candles. We thank John Turner of MetaThink. And if anybody has got subjects that they'd like us to cover in 2015 on the business, please get in touch with us. You can tweet RVTheBusiness or call us in the studio when we're on air on 01727 839 926. Thanks once again to Alex Shoobert, and to Laura Dannan of Heartwood Candles. And that just leaves us to really wish everybody a fantastic 2015.
The Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
If there's anything in the show you want to talk to us about, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.